Hi, this is Spider-Man, and I'd love to stick around and listen to amazing spider talk, but Madam Web just told me Doc Ock is about to kidnap Mary Jane Watson, and well, a spider's gotta do what a spider's gotta do.
Too many who know the angles, uncover and untangle all the questions and the web's left out to tangle. In 1962, last Wednesday's afternoon, they'll bend your ears with reckless self-abandon. The amazing spider talk. The amazing spider talk. Come swing through the air, sit back and prepare for the amazing spider talk.
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Spider Talk. My name is Dan Gvozden, and I'm the founder and editor of SuperiorSpiderTalk.com.
And I'm Mark Ginocchio, founder of the Chasing Amazing blog and an editor at Superior Spider Talk.
Mark, what's going on the Chasing Amazing blog these days?
Not much. So, but I'm still the founder. That doesn't change regardless of its inactivity. It'll be there for perpetuity.
I need to do a Chasing Amazing blog reread. Just start over from day one and work my way back to the moment that you gave up and joined my site.
There you go. You'll find 4 years worth of kind of inconsistently posted content.
My favorite.
Yes.
So we're passing the 2 years of inconsistent content on my site.
There you go. Well, yeah, but your site at least kind of has a core mission where, you know, after a few years with mine, I was just like, I don't know, maybe I'll talk about these books, maybe I won't. I give up.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us for the 15th episode of our coverage of Volume 4 of Amazing Spider-Man. Speaking of inconsistent content.
Yes.
Well, we hope you guys enjoy this podcast and that it provides an intelligent conversation between two fans and collectors as we hope to look at the Spider-Man comic universe in a bit of a bigger picture.
Yes, and for this episode, we will be discussing Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 15 by Dan Slott, Christos Gage, and Giuseppe Camuncoli. Then we'll respond to your comments and emails. Issue 15, Dan, so this thing might surpass Volume 3 for longevity, it appears.
Who knows? I mean,
kidding, reboot.
Right, we had solicits today even for Invincible Iron Man number 1 coming this fall, which
Yay.
I feel like we just got. So are we getting Amazing Spider-Man number 1 this fall after Dead No More or whatever we're calling it? Who knows?
Clone Conspiracy, Dan. Clone Conspiracy.
All right, well, I'm going to have to adjust to that. Well,
there we go.
I hope you all enjoyed listening to the previous episode of the show where we previewed some of our members-only content. Mark and I needed that week off to kind of get everything back in gear. But that included an awesome discussion about interviewing Dan Slott. That wasn't actually an interview with Dan Slott, so I hope you guys enjoyed that in some form. Mark, do you remember recording that episode?
I did. That was my first exposure to Alan, and I was happy that we did it. You know, although we still haven't met for lunch, and we need to do that. So, Alan, if you're listening, which I know you do, lunch, man. When are we doing this?
This is like writing in the sky. Meet at our familiar place,
yes.
With the Human Torch. Well, we got a lot of exciting content to talk about today. So, Mark, let's not dawdle any longer.
You keep saying you got something for me, something you call love, but confess you've been a messin' where you shouldn't have been a messin', and now someone else is getting all your best. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Alrighty, Dan. So, Amazing Spider-Man number 15. This was the conclusion to the Regent arc. This arc had a name, didn't it? And I'm being kind of silly about not remembering it. What was it called?
It was called Power Play, Mark.
Power Play. There. Oh, that wordsmithing again. So, Dan, you and I weren't exactly bowled over by the previous installments of Power Play. I felt that this last chapter was a step in the right direction, but it also might have been too little too late. And it suffered, I think, from an overall issue with the main antagonist, which is just Regent. I mean, Regent, we thought was kind of dull and not compelling in Renew Your Vows. And I can't say anything about this new story has changed my opinion on him, right?
I mean, I think I was a little more favorable than you were about Regent early on. I thought there were some interesting things being done with him, especially him setting up this mantra. And I even commented a couple episodes ago that I thought it might be interesting if this story ended up being like a commentary on mantras and how I guess like inflexible they are and how perhaps wrong-headed they can be to establish. And then I think you and Brian both shot me down saying, yeah, but that's like every single Spider-Man story ever. And I think, not to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but the epilogue to this story, the kind of lengthy epilogue, kind of like tries to do that really inelegantly. So yeah, I'm with you, Mark. Regent, kind of a snooze. I was hoping that there'd be more potential here for him, but yeah, I think it went down the same path as Renew Your Vows, in more ways than one.
Yeah, I mean, we even, not to jump around sequentially here, but I mean, we even had a call out to Renew Your Vows in this issue where they were like, oh, it's like deja vu. And it's, we've been getting that kind of meta commentary a lot in these stories. And I don't know, it's kind of cute here and there, but it certainly seems like Dan Slott likes to point out how much he recycles stories, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, one time would be cute, but, like, now that we're doing it every story, whether it's, this Spider-Man is like Iron Man, or this is a retelling of Renew Your Vows, or this is how superhero team-ups happen and play out, it seems like it's less cute and more than it seems to be like a writer trying to ask for excuses for his rehashed stories. And I think I'm kind of running out of, I guess, patience to or forgivability in regards to these excuses. It's like, enough with the excuses. Tell us a real story.
Right. I mean, for fans of the TV show Community, I kind of feel like Spider-Man is sometimes being written by Abed, and it's like, this always never-ending need to comment on what's being, on something that's meta, and I think Dan Slott actually pulls a lot of inspiration from Community. I mean, that is the birthplace of Crazy Town Banana Pants, after all. Let's find a new trick for that pony, so to speak. But talking about the issue itself, Dan, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of, when this solicit first came out a few months ago, and we had that it's a stunning cover by Alex Ross with MJ in the Iron Spider suit. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of dreaded. Oh my God, what is this gonna be? Is this gonna be like another one of these instances we complained about it during Spider-Verse, most specifically, where some random character, not that MJ is random, but some character that really has no business saving the world ends up like saving Peter's behind, and he has to be eternally grateful for the non-powered person for helping him out. And I mean, we got that to some degree here, but I actually thought the way MJ was used here in superhero form was pretty effective. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, first of all, I thought they did a good job setting up why this would rationally work in this world, in that I guess she wore Iron Man armor during the other, which I remember, although that's quite a bit of a deep dive. I was half expecting them to go, remember in Renew Your Vows, I did this?
Yeah.
But no, it was from the other. And then the Spider Island thing. So, I believe this, and I like that MJ continued to assert that this is like a one-time deal. Like, don't get used to this. And, the action that she took in this, she continues to fight against Regent, but really she's just acting as a facilitator, I guess, for Spider-Man and Iron Man breaking free of the Regent's grasp. So I was glad that she wasn't the one to take down the Regent in the end. Although I don't think you could really claim that Spider-Man took down the Regent either. So, it was, step forward, step backwards, but I thought that was handled well. And a special note, you talked about the Alex Ross cover, which I guess is standard now.
Right.
I like that the cover and Camuncoli didn't play up Mary Jane's, I guess, assets, if you will.
Right, in the suit, yeah.
She wasn't super busty. It wasn't like a sex kitten superhero. Like, she was allowed to have some kind of agency of her own without just being a superhero with boobs. And I like that. Although, towards the end of this book, we get the obligatory and absolutely unnecessary, underwear shot of Mary Jane getting ready for the day, I guess. And you could argue that Peter's in his boxers as well, but he also has a shirt on. I don't know. So, again, one step forward, one step back. We get a non-sexualized Mary Jane, only to get a sexualized Mary Jane.
Yeah, well, that, like you said, there's some. You take the good, you take the bad. But I mean, I really was kind of thankful that I never was under the impression that MJ had everything under control here. This was kind of her going into action was kind of a Hail Mary pass to, like you said, to facilitate Spidey and Iron Man, and the fact that they brought up her background in doing similar things. I think this was justified. It was well executed. The art was good, as you mentioned. So, I'll take it. I mean, these are the positive steps of this issue.
I liked that there was a panel where she had like a brief aside to herself in smaller lettering, where she was basically like, "This is basically a suicide mission, and they're really going to owe me," and that really did a lot for me, like to kind of humanize her. And I think whenever she's on the page in this book, all the characters read like the right characters. Like Spider-Man reads like Spider-Man, and Iron Man reads like Iron Man, and Mary Jane reads like Mary Jane. And like the book stands out the best when she's on the page.
Yeah, and speaking of books standing out, I still continue to really enjoy what Dan Slott's been doing with Harry Lyman. I mean, obviously not as prominent as a role in this one, but again, like, now here's a guy who has masqueraded as a costumed villain or hero, depending on what story you're reading. But again, he was kind of captured, found a way to break free during the melee, and I felt never kind of got over his head in terms of the situation, and I kind of liked that level-headedness. I don't know. Harry has been, of this volume, one of my favorite of the supporting cast characters consistently. I think he's probably the most consistently well-written, and that wasn't different here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not in love with the whole Clash app thing.
Yeah.
Mainly because I feel like this book often trades in this kind of cheat where it's like, oh, there just so happens to be a Clash app that can solve my problem for me.
Many MacGuffins.
Yeah, but it's not even that. It's like it doesn't seed that earlier in the story. It's there's no gun.
Yeah,
it's just like, oh, suddenly he has a gun in his hand.
The gun just fired. What gun? A gun I've had since Act 1. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and on its own, I think it's fine. But there seems to be a preponderance of these guns. And after a while, I'm like, I would really like to feel like that's a payoff for something, but it's not the worst thing in the world.
Right. But so the fight with Regent was kind of the what we've come to expect, the anticlimactic fare that we've been getting a lot in these slot arcs over the last couple of years. I mean, anything about the battle that you thought was notable, or I mean, was just kind of like another yawn fest and anticlimactic for you?
Well, I liked some of what Kamikoli did during the actual battle itself. There's one panel where Peter is like standing on one hand before he like flips himself into kicking Regent, and I thought that's kind of fun. And Regent, he's not interesting, but it's fun to see him kind of use all these powers. I like there's one image where he is like the Human Torch, and I liked how that was rendered by Kamikoli. And I thought there was some fun moments with Miles too, like when they break him out and Peter makes that joke about like the action figures no longer being mint, and I thought that was a little clever. And it was a nice drawing. How about you?
No, agreed. I mean, I mean, there were some moments there, but Regent is essentially defeated off panel, and like all of the events just kind of clutter onto the page. It just didn't feel momentous, considering how this guy was making them eat their lunch an issue earlier. And. Yeah, I mean, this is superhero comics. This is what happens. The hero saves the day, but I don't know. They could have been built up with a little more suspense.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the real miss is that full-page splash from Kamikoli. Like you said, the heroes are just cluttered onto the page. It's really like the least striking visual in the whole book, when it really should sell you on the overwhelming power of those heroes and standing up against Regent, but they're all very small in the frame, and they're all very cluttered to the left with this big open space to the right, and there's like a weird perspective thing where some of the characters seem to be like looking at Regent, but yet they're closer to us than Regent is. To me, it was like one of the like weakest bits of art that I've seen from Kamikoli in a while, and I really felt like it needed to be that really like standout. Especially since he's defeated off panel, I wanted to buy into that fact, and I felt like it really was not communicated here.
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of this ultimate moral that came from the Regent's defeat, this kind of, the lessons learned, so to speak. And I'm not going to lie. I like it when a story can be reflective, but I also don't know if this moment was totally earned, because at really no point, I mean, hey, you had the foresight to bring it up a couple of episodes ago, but I mean, in the text itself, did you really feel that we were building up to this kind of, oh, this is where Regent went wrong, or his hubris got the better for him? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it just kind of like, I feel like he went from being this well-meaning person to being like a mustache twirling villain bent on world destruction very quickly, with no middle ground.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, like, to me, this story would have been fine in like a 1 or 2 issue arc, but when you stretch it out over 4 issues, I feel like Dan Slott, he has a really hard time kind of structuring these stories. And to me, this story is missing a second act. It's like, here's the ideas, here's the ending, and none of it is earned. And to me, this reminded me a lot of Spider-Verse, where it was like, hey, here's the setup, and then by the end we're supposed to believe that Peter learned how to be a leader despite seeing none of the evidence towards that. And you can like the idea that Peter has learned to become a leader the same way you can like the idea that Peter learned a lesson about not losing himself in his work, which, I mean, on a side note, is like the oldest Spider-Man lesson in the book. So, like, kind of boring. But yeah, I agree with you. It's totally not earned here.
It's not earned, and it's that old thing, as my college English teacher would say, of telling and not showing. Pretty clearly, there's no question that this was not shown in any kind of meaningful way, and yet I kind of liked the sentimentality of that gathering of the friends and Peter being like, I need to do this more and we need to be together, and Jameson ribbing him and he's not my stepbrother, that's weird. I mean, like, I liked that and I want to see more of those moments. They just need to be better earned, right?
Well, the funny thing is, I feel like what you're talking about, like, this ending was like the answer to all of the things that we wanted and have commented on during this story. Like, oh, maybe it'll be a commentary on mantras. Maybe it'll be a way to bring back in the supporting cast. And we even asked, like, why is Peter suddenly, interested in Mary Jane when he hasn't thought about it? And they even say in this, he's like, oh, I waited too long and I missed out on Mary Jane before I knew it. So in a way, it is like an answer to all these things. But again, like you said, it's just not earned at all. And yeah, I love this ending to a completely different story.
Yeah. It's like, this is not the sentimental story it appears to be at the very last few pages.
It's like if you ran a marathon and then someone gave you ice cream and you're like, yeah, I like ice cream and it's a suitable reward, but it's the last thing I want at the end of a marathon.
That's very true, Dan. That's a good analogy. Thank you.
There you go. Speaking of analogies, I wanted to get back to this whole, last time we talked about this kind of gun control metaphor, and I couldn't help but think about it again in this issue, and I wonder if you thought about it as well. But there's this whole conversation in the middle of the Regent battle about, like, how far,
Yeah, like, what about those without powers? What can are you going to take away their guns and weapons and whatnot, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think it's an accident that this kind of language has found its way into this book. Although, again, the weird thing to me is it seems very anti-gun control in its message, and knowing Dan Slott being completely the opposite, I continue to find it really interesting. I don't know. Am I reaching here? I mean, to me, it's like, oh, this is the second issue in a row where I thought about this.
No, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, there was definitely a sense of where will this stop, which is certainly, for people who are, I don't want to say anti-gun control, but aren't strict gun control advocates, is a question that gets brought up a lot. I mean, how far can you go? I mean, yes, we can ban these things, but what about due process, et cetera? I'm not going to get into the whole debate, but we've had this conversation, Dan, offline. And it is odd, or I shouldn't say odd, it is interesting that Dan Slott is kind of posing this debate in not even very subtle terms, and I, maybe he's not aware of it, but maybe he is, and he's trying to be nuanced and complex about it, regardless of what he's tweeting about, because it makes for a better storyline. I mean, it was an interesting question to be raised during the course of this story, so it worked. So that's good if a artist can kind of put aside their beliefs and make an interesting argument regardless, right?
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that makes this story more interesting to me than something like the Zodiac story, which the Zodiac story seemed, it was a big fun, action thing. But here, at least it seems to me like there's some thematic ideas going on. They might not be, resolved in an interesting way, but at least there seems to be something else going on beneath the surface, and I think that's it seems like it's kind of a low bar, to expect from art, but I was happy to see that resurface, and I wanted to kind of mention it, before we moved on.
Okay. Are you satisfied with that, or is there anything else you want to say on that point?
Not really. I mean, other than getting into a discussion of like fascism in comics, which could be a whole other episode. It's just something to kind of keep an eye on, and I'm always interested when politics, in a weird way, find their way into superhero books.
Well, fortunately, this isn't the Frank Miller comic book podcast, or else we would have a lot of fascism to talk about.
Or the Spider-Gwen annual podcast.
Okay. So what about this thing with Jameson Sr.?
Well, before we get to that, I want to talk about this kind of reunion because there's kind of an interesting moment where the book teases us that like Peter is going to like renew his friendship with MJ, and it like kind of plays off of our knowledge of Spider-Man and our knowledge of comic books as it kind of puts them panel after panel, mirrored with each other, and then we get this thing about like how I don't drink alcohol, and that could very easily be Peter. And when you turn the page, it's Tony Stark. Yeah. I don't know. Did you get have a reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like certainly since the end of Superior, and even earlier than that I don't know, like that's a toy that Dan Slott doesn't want to take out of the box right now. I think we kind of had that moment in Spider Island. But we're not really going to go back to that well. And that was kind of, to me, I saw that scene as him kind of being definitive about that. Like, okay, you had Spider Island, you had Renew Your Vows in this alternative universe last summer, but this is not happening in any shape or form. I mean, maybe they'll be congenial to each other in public, but other than that, this is not a long-term bond per se.
Yeah, and for me, I found that relieving because, I want to move the character of Mary Jane out of this kind of, forced limbo where it's like a will she, won't she, when it's very clear she's not going to get back together with Peter. I mean, I just can't see editorial approving that. So I'm glad to see her moving on, but I can understand why readers would find that page turn to be kind of an emotional gut punch and kind of emotionally manipulative in a way that, in a negative way, considering how much Marvel has kind of teased that and made money off of kind of teasing the Spider-Man Mary Jane relationship. So I can understand the emotional reaction tied to that page turn.
Yeah, no, I agree, but like you said, it's time to move on, people.
So we get a brief kind of reconnection with all of Spider-Man's supporting cast, which I think we both kind of agreed was really fun to read, and for me, I thought was really kind of the emotional warmth I wanted back in this series. Even at the Coffee Bean, that was fun to see.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, it's all, coffee is quite bitter.
Yeah, I would say it all goes to you-know-what, Dan. It's that Jameson luck, I tell you.
There you go. There you go. And
but what I did find interesting was he was kind of coughing up blood at the end, and we had that scene with May in the previous issue. So, I mean, are we being led to believe that this is a natural illness, or is this an illness that's going to feed into something in the clone conspiracy Dead No More story?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be a natural thing. It could be poisoning or something that's going on in their house. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, on the surface, the only reason I would think something weird, mystical is going on, is because I know Dead No More is coming. Sorry, the clone conspiracy is coming. But, on its surface, I'm wondering, are the two of them ill together? I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, it was certainly a gut punch of an ending, especially considering all the sweetness and sentimentality. But, again, there was an effectiveness to it because now you're kind of like, you're braced and you do want to see what happens next, right?
Yeah, I'm really, it's probably one of the best cliffhangers I've seen in this book in a while. And, I thought Kamankole's art was really haunting there. I mean, I look at that image and I kind of wince. I mean, Jameson does not look good.
No, it doesn't look promising. So, we'll see if he's upgraded to alive and playing tennis in the first page of the next issue. Oh, you know me. I just like to cough up blood and collapse into a fit on the floor. But
sounds like your Uncle Ben.
There you go. Don't joke. Do you want to get right to the review, to the letter grades, Dan?
Yeah, well, I mean, one quick shout out before we get to the letter grades is I want to say this is the return of the letters page.
Oh boy!
In this book, I don't know about you, Mark, but I love the letters page. just kind of like a historical check-in. You can see what people are thinking about the book. Not that this book has published like negative responses in quite a while, much less published a letters page in quite a while. But like, I don't think we've seen a letters page in this volume, period. So I'm always pleased when it comes back because it used to be a staple of the Spider-Man books.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I kind of find myself reading the letters page depending on what I'm feeling about the series itself at the time, and if I'm not in a happy place, I don't know if I want to read the letters page.
Why? Because everybody is genuinely in love with the book when you read the letters page.
Yeah, or at least those are the letters that they choose to run, and those that aren't, they tend to run the angry version of maybe a more reasoned argument.
That's true. That's true. All right. Grades. I'm giving this one a C+.
And I'm right there with you, Dan. It was slightly above average, and nothing says slightly above average like adding a plus to a C, right?
There you go. There you go. I guess it's time to move on, Mark, and let's talk about our fan-submitted comment and emails.
Yes, Dan, we love to hear from you, our wonderful, beautiful listeners. Best way to do that, of course, is to email us at amazingspidertalk@gmail.com or to tweet at us with the hashtag OKToPrint. Leave us a voicemail at 9RedGoblin. We love that voicemail system. And, of course, leaving us comments and ratings at our iTunes and Google Play and all those other pages where you can download our show and subscribe to it. So speaking of which, our first comment, Dan, why don't you read it for us?
Well, actually, this seems to be a re-comment because I know that this person has commented before. So take what you will from this. It's Papa Jonah Pizza.
Oh man!
And he gives.
I'm feeling hungry.
There you go. I'm actually starving right now, Mark.
Okay.
Well, a little bit of behind the scenes action.
Let's say you're 3 hours behind me, so that makes sense.
All right. Well, this one's 5 out of 5 to top-notch Spidey Talk. I've been listening since their first Superior Spider Talk podcast, and this show just gets better and better. Not only is the discussion between Dan and Mark intelligent and inclusive, the show is full of humor. Mark's swarm impersonation had me laughing out loud. So there you go, Mark. Someone like your swarm. I mean,
what do you mean? What do you mean impersonation?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm my mistake.
Yeah.
The host's love for Spider-Man and ability to discuss comics with insight, sophistication, and a sense of fun has me tuning in every week. It's so good they should start selling ad space on the show.
Oh. Hint.
I'm guessing people are not loving my continued plug of the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. And I'll take that to heart. That's a good thing to note. Perhaps you would rather brief ads than me trying to get you guys to support us on your own. So, I don't know. Something to consider.
Yes. Well, that's depressing. No, I'm kidding.
Mark, we have a very short, it seems, review here.
My favorite kind, Dan. It's from Megatron Nom Nom. So, I mean, obviously someone who appreciates food. And it's 5 out of 5 stars. And Megatron writes, I love this podcast.
Short and sweet.
Thank you, Megatron. Nom nom. Nom nom nom.
Well, speaking of food and sweet things, we asked last episode for we like to talk about food. And Dane, one of our listeners, felt free to send us a recipe. So he sent us a recipe for brownie in a mug. Mark, how do you feel about that?
I've seen it before. Yeah. If you got to do it in a mug, might as well do brownie in a microwave. Why don't you share the recipe, Dan?
This is like a personal pan brownie.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to share the recipe on here, but if you look in our show notes, you'll get the recipe there. But Mark, we'll just say this: we have not tried this yet, so you're going to have to let us know.
We can't vouch for the quality of this, and No, I'm not going to offer any commentary. I should try it first, and then maybe I'll try and put a version of this together, Dan, and I'll get back to everyone.
That sounds good to me. So let us know if this recipe that you can find in the show notes works out for you guys. So thanks, Dane, for the recipe. Mark, we got another email. Can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, this is related to the Marvel movieverse. And the question is, guys, if the Vulture is the villain or one of the villains in Homecoming, do you think Spidey's quick battle with Falcon in Captain America Civil War and the relative ease with which Spidey immobilized Falcon diminishes the threat that Vulture can pose? Carry on. A great show. Kevin Ewing. Dan, do you want to go first? I kind of have a no prize lined up for this one, but I don't know what your thoughts on this are.
I think it's a good point. And something that I think, anybody thinking about the Vulture, even in the comics, is I never felt like the Vulture posed like a real, genuine threat to Spider-Man, because he's really just like an air mobile guy, which is like kind of a base power for most villains or most heroes, in the Marvel universe, just the ability of flight. But yeah, that's a good question. If we've seen him dismantle the Falcon so quickly. I honestly think that the Vulture is going to be a little different than people are used to him being. I suspect the life theft element is going to play into the plot of the movie, and we're going to see some, age absorption powers, perhaps, or something kind of supernatural to that element to kind of soup up the Vulture. That's just my take. I could be totally wrong. I have nothing backing this. It's just something I feel with my gut.
Yeah, because when in doubt, let's turn to 90s Marvel.
There you go.
I'll just say in terms of no prize winning here, in the movie, when the heroes were fighting each other, they were kind of pulling their punches with each other. So, you can make the case that Falcon was not going full throttle after Spider-Man here and kind of allowed himself to be taken by surprise, whereas I feel that whatever iteration of the Vulture we receive here, he's going to be much more malicious and aggressive. So I don't think that diminishes the threat of the villain.
Yeah, much. It also has to be said, if it's Michael Keaton, that guy could sell just about anything. So, even if he's not physically imposing, performance-wise, he'll probably be pretty frightening.
Absolutely. Who wasn't frightened in Multiplicity?
Yeah, there you go. But think about Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus. I feel like that villain could have been very goofy, and you definitely couldn't have bought it. But that Alfred Molina sells that character so hard in that movie. And I hope we get the same thing from Michael Keaton.
I think we will, because there's no Topher Grace Venom in this movie yet.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. That cast list is growing by the day. Who won't be in this upcoming movie? I can't keep up with it anymore.
All right. Well, we'll see. Dan, do we want to go home after Homecoming here?
Yeah, that sounds good. A short and sweet episode.
Like Nom Nom's comment to us.
There you go. Look at this. We are becoming the masters of the segue.
Okay. Well, take it away, Dan.
Oh, okay. Is that what we're doing now?
That's what we're doing.
I totally torpedoed this thing.
That's all right.
All right. Well, of course, you can find all of our new Amazing Spider Talk and old Superior Spider Talk podcasts at superiorspidertalk.com, or find us on iTunes and Stitcher by searching Amazing Spider Talk. And if you do, please be sure to leave us a review, and we'll read it on the air like we just did.
Additionally, be sure to check out our brother podcast, The Ultimate Spin, if you want to keep up with the adventures of Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen Stacy.
And also, be sure to join our friendly neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club so you can get all kinds of amazing prizes, listen to our members-only podcasts like the ones you heard last week, and support the continuation of our show and website.
Well, next week, Dan, we will be discussing our next Essentials pick. This time, it's your choice. And what are we going to read, Dan?
Yeah, well, we kind of announced this before, but, we'll say it again because we kind of pushed our schedule a little bit. We're going to be reading Amazing Spider-Man number 226 and 227 by Roger Stern and John Romita Jr., also known as But the Cat Came Back and Going Straight, which are, I guess, to my mind, the most definitive Black Cat stories ever written. So we're going to be talking Black Cat, but we're not going to be talking about the time that Black Cat's mother met Spider-Man and approved of him dating her daughter.
Oh, have a milk bath, dear.
There you go. There you go.
All right, Dan. Well, where can we find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, of course, you can find me at SuperiorSpiderTalk.com, reviewing comics and writing news pieces and all of that fun stuff. And you can follow me on Twitter at @SupSpiderTalk and read all of my movie reviews at GrindMyReels.com. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, Dan, you can find me at SuperiorSpiderTalk.com. Not so much ChasingAmazingBlog.com, but, the site still exists. So if you want to do that backwards reading that Dan was discussing, it's there for you, people. So don't forget about it. And then you could also follow me on Twitter at ChasingASMblog. I don't write movie reviews, but if I did, I would just basically tell Dan that The Force Awakens is better than he thinks it is.
Basically, you would just tell me that everything I know is wrong.
That's true. I enjoy that you wrote a favorable review for West Side Story on, what was that, Redbox or whatever that was? Letterboxd. I didn't know if you were going to criticize it for being a little too much fan service to Romeo and Juliet.
I actually prefer how its story works out to Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Like it's not an original story, but it the characters really sell it, and I'm glad. It's a great musical. You need to listen to Hamilton, Dan, as I discovered today. I'm glad that you and I can come to an agreement on West Side Story. There we go. Well, it's kind of hard to argue with it, but
Dan and Mark approved. If you were waiting and holding out on watching that movie.
Ah, yes, Maria. The most beautiful sound I have ever heard. If I was not feeling like crap right now, Dan, I would sing it to you.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm kind of glad you're not feeling well.
Thank you.
Because I've heard you singing. Oh, I know. Maybe I haven't heard you singing. Yeah. So, Mark, this past weekend, we didn't do a show because I was traveling back to Maryland to celebrate, my engagement to my beautiful fiance and friend of the show, Amy, and my 30th birthday, which meant, reconnecting with my supporting cast. I mean, family and friends after months away from them. What's it like for you to reconnect with your supporting cast? I mean, family and friends after months away from them.
Oh, yeah. Well, like sometimes, Dan, you got to remember the job I have, I'm a CEO of this multinational company, Amazing Spider Talk. You lose sight of those things like family and spending time together. And, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, we had a nice little barbecue with some friends, some family came by. It was a great thing. We were playing an old wiffle ball game, and my Uncle Ben, I gotta tell you, he really gets into wiffle ball. Like he's like, not just when he's at bat, because you've seen guys swing a wiffle ball bat, Dan. It's kind of silly to look at, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so he gets into it like when he's like even in the field and stuff. He's like diving on his knees to get like ground balls and stuff like that.
Does he like taunt people and call them names?
Oh yeah, he's that guy. You should see him in flag football too. But unfortunately, this time around, I hit a high pop fly, and those wiffle balls, they never really go in a straight line. It's whiffling and waffling in the air, and he's chasing after it, and he's like pushing down some of my little cousins, telling them to get out of his way, and he's not looking in front of him, Dan, and he tripped and just completely belly flopped onto the open grill, searing his flesh terribly. Needless to say, we didn't eat the burgers that night because Uncle Ben was incinerated on our grill, so it would have been in poor form. But
I would say so.
yeah. Well, we tried to be a little polite. I mean, I was disappointed. I had made some killer turkey burgers and didn't realize that I would be killing my uncle on the grill. But the good news is, before he completely went up in flames, he said, "With great podcasts must also come amazing spider talk."